She offered a grand gesture to a stranger, not knowing that he is a billionaire CEO looking for love. Simone Price thought she was just being neighborly when she offered food and air conditioning to the stranded man in her parking lot that March afternoon, because that's what you did when someone looked as lost and sad as this stranger with the broken-down Mercedes and the carefully blank expression of someone trying not to fall apart. But what she didn't know was that Jonathan Wood was a billionaire who'd been sleepwalking through life since grief took his mother and left him with everything except purpose, or that her simple act of seeing him as human instead of wealthy would crack something open in both of them, something that looked a lot like hope and felt dangerously close to the kind of love that changes everything. Welcome back to CJ Stories, where we bring you emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul. If you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome to this wonderful big family. We're so glad to have you here. Please make sure to watch till the end, and if today's story moves you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this video with your family and loved ones. Now, let's dive into today's story. Jonathan Wood stood in the parking lot of Charleston's Eastside Community Center on a Friday afternoon in March 2024, staring at his phone like it held answers it definitely didn't have. 37 years old. Billionaire. CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Southeast. And he couldn't figure out how to feel anything that mattered anymore. His assistant had called it burnout. His therapist called it unprocessed grief. Jonathan called it exactly what it was, 2 years since his mother died, and he still hadn't figured out how to exist in a world where the only person who'd ever really known him was gone. The community center wasn't somewhere he'd planned to be. He'd taken a wrong turn trying to avoid traffic on King Street, ended up in a neighborhood that clearly didn't see much of his tax bracket, and then his car started making a sound that suggested expensive mistakes had been made. He'd pulled into the first parking lot he saw. Now his Mercedes sat silent, hood slightly warm, refusing to start. His phone showed 2 bars of service and exactly 0 nearby luxury auto services that could reach him in under 2 hours. Perfect. The community center behind him was a converted brick warehouse, painted a cheerful yellow that had seen better days. Hand-painted murals covered one wall. Kids' voices drifted through open windows. Someone was playing music inside, something with drums and joy that felt foreign to everything Jonathan had touched in months. He was still standing there, trying to decide between waiting in his car or finding somewhere with better cell service, when the front door opened and someone called out. "Hey, you okay?" Jonathan looked up. The woman walking toward him was beautiful in a way that made him forget he'd spent the last year and a half barely noticing anyone. She wore jeans and a faded community center t-shirt, her natural hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she moved with the kind of easy confidence that came from knowing exactly who you were. 35, maybe. Warm brown skin. Eyes that looked at him like she actually saw a person, not a net worth. "Car trouble," Jonathan said, hearing how out of place his voice sounded. Flat. Corporate. Nothing like the music still floating from inside the building. She stopped a few feet away, studying his Mercedes with an expression that wasn't quite sympathy. More like understanding. "Yeah, she looks sad," the woman said. "You call someone?" "Waiting on a callback." Jonathan slipped his phone into his pocket. "I'll be out of your parking lot soon." "Not worried about the parking lot." She tilted her head slightly. "Worried about you standing in the sun looking like you're about to pass out." "When's the last time you ate something?" The question surprised him. Jonathan tried to remember. Breakfast had been coffee. Lunch had been a meeting. Dinner last night had been bourbon. "I'm fine," he said. "Right." She didn't look convinced. "Look, I've got sandwiches inside. Youth group just finished and we always make too much food. You're welcome to come in, sit somewhere with air conditioning, wait for your callback in something other than a parking lot." Jonathan hesitated. He'd learned a long time ago that strangers offering kindness usually wanted something. A donation. A connection. An introduction to someone more important. But this woman looked at him like she had no idea who he was. Like he was just some guy with car trouble who looked hungry. It felt like oxygen. "I don't want to intrude," Jonathan said carefully. "You're not." She was already turning back toward the building. "Come on. I'm Simone, by the way. I run this place." "Jonathan." He followed without quite deciding to. "And thank you." The inside of the community center was chaos in the best possible way. Teenagers clustered around tables, finishing homework and arguing cheerfully. Younger kids played basketball in a corner gym. The whole space smelled like cleaning supplies and hope and something baking. Simone led him past the main room toward a small office that looked like a tornado of paperwork and passion had collided. "Sorry about the mess," she said, clearing off a chair. "Capital campaign season. Everyone wants reports and outcomes and proof we're changing lives." She smiled, and it changed her whole face. "As if the kids in that room aren't proof enough." Jonathan sat. Through the window, he could see the main space. Kids who looked happy, safe, cared for. "How long have you been running this place?" he asked. "Officially? About a year. Opened it March of last year." Simone pulled 2 sandwiches from a small fridge, handed him one without asking if he wanted it. "Unofficially? I've been fighting for this neighborhood since I was one of those kids out there. Just took me a while to figure out how to make it sustainable." She said it simply. Like building something from nothing was just what you did when you saw a need. Jonathan unwrapped the sandwich. Turkey and cheese, nothing fancy, but made with the kind of care that suggested someone had been thinking about the person who'd eat it. "Capital campaign," he said. "That means you're fundraising?" Simone's expression shifted slightly. "Not closed, exactly. Just careful. Always," she said. "Grants only cover so much. We're trying to expand, add after-school tutoring, maybe a summer program. But that's boring donor talk. You don't need to hear about our budget gaps." She said it kindly, but Jonathan heard the boundary. She'd offered him kindness, not a pitch. It made him want to hear the pitch anyway. "What would the summer program look like?" he asked. Simone leaned against her desk, considering him. Like she was trying to figure out if he was genuinely asking or just being polite. "Safe space," she finally said. "Most of these kids, summer means empty houses while parents work double shifts, or streets that aren't always safe, or nothing to do but get into trouble they don't want. A summer program means structure. Activities. Field trips maybe, if we can swing it. Meals." She gestured toward the main room. "It means they have somewhere to be where people care if they show up." Jonathan took a bite of his sandwich. It was good. Really good. The kind of simple and perfect that came from someone who actually paid attention. "Why this neighborhood?" he asked. "Because I grew up 3 blocks from here." Simone's voice was steady. "Because my mama worked 3 jobs to keep me fed and safe, and she didn't always have somewhere to send me that she trusted. Because the community center that used to be here closed down right when kids needed it most, and I watched what happened after." She met his eyes. "Because someone has to care. Might as well be me." There was no performance in it. No practiced speech. Just truth. Jonathan felt something shift in his chest. The first real feeling he'd had in months that wasn't grief or emptiness. "Your mom," he said quietly. "She's still in the area?" "She is. Still works too hard, still won't let me help as much as I want to." Simone smiled. "Stubborn. But she comes by here sometimes, makes sure I'm eating. Taking care of myself. All the mom things." Jonathan nodded. Tried to imagine what that was like, having someone who still did the mom things. His phone buzzed. The auto service, finally calling back. He looked at the screen, then at Simone, then made a decision that surprised him. "Do you have a business card?" Jonathan asked. "For the center. In case I wanted to learn more about the summer program." Simone's eyebrows rose slightly. She reached across her desk, pulled a card from a holder that was mostly empty. "We're not fancy," she said, handing it to him. "But we're good at what we do." Jonathan took the card. Read her name. Simone Price, Executive Director. A phone number and email address. The community center's mission statement printed on the back. "Building futures, strengthening community, creating hope." "I can see that," he said. His phone buzzed again. He answered it this time, arranged for the tow truck, confirmed his location. When he hung up, Simone was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "They'll be here in 20 minutes, Jonathan said. "I should wait outside. Let you get back to work. You can wait in here if you want. It's hot out there." But Jonathan stood anyway. Something about this place, this woman, made him want to be honest in a way he hadn't been in a long time. "Thank you," he said. "For the sandwich. For not treating me like an inconvenience. Everyone's got car trouble sometimes." Simone walked him toward the door. "Everyone deserves a sandwich and some kindness when they need it." They reached the parking lot. Jonathan's Mercedes looked even more out of place in the afternoon light. A symbol of everything he'd built and nothing he'd needed. "Can I ask you something?" Simone said suddenly. "Sure. You seem sad." She said it gently. Not like an accusation. Like an observation from someone who recognized the landscape. "I don't know you, and maybe that's not my business. But I've learned that people who look like you looked when you got out of that car usually need more than a tow truck." Jonathan stood very still. No one had said it that directly in 2 years. Everyone danced around it. Poor Jonathan, lost his mother. Give him space. Give him time. No one just looked at him and said, "You seem sad." "I am sad," he heard himself say. "My mom died 2 years ago, and I don't know how to stop being sad about it." Simone nodded slowly. "My dad almost died 3 years ago. Medical thing, sudden, scary." He made it, but I remember that feeling. Like the ground disappeared and you're just falling. Yeah. Jonathan's throat felt tight. Exactly like that. It gets different, Simone said quietly. Not better, necessarily. Just different. The falling stops eventually. You figure out how to stand again. How? She considered the question seriously. For me? I built this place. Turned all that fear and love and need to do something into something that mattered. Something Mama and Dad could be proud of. She looked at the community center behind them. Something that makes the world a little less scary for someone else. The tow truck turned onto the street, heading their direction. Jonathan looked at the business card still in his hand. At Simone. At this place she'd built from fear and love. I'm going to call you, he said. About the summer program. I'd like to help if I can. You don't have to do that just because I gave you a sandwich. I'm not. Jonathan met her eyes. I'm doing it because you reminded me what it feels like to care about something real. The tow truck pulled into the parking lot. The driver got out, started assessing the Mercedes with professional efficiency. Simone extended her hand. Jonathan shook it, felt the warmth of her palm against his. Take care of yourself, Jonathan, she said. You too, Simone. He turned toward the tow truck driver, started explaining the problem. Behind him, he heard Simone walk back toward the community center, heard the door open and the sounds of kids and music spill out. Jonathan gave the driver his information, arranged for the car to be taken to the dealership, called for a ride service to take him home. The whole time, he kept Simone's business card in his hand. For the first time in 2 years, Jonathan would felt something other than empty. He felt curious. And maybe, just maybe, he felt the beginning of hope. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. 1 week later, on a Tuesday morning in late March, Simone was buried in grant applications when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. East Side Community Center, this is Simone. This is Jonathan. From last week. The car trouble. Simone leaned back in her chair, surprised by how quickly she smiled. She'd thought about him a few times since that afternoon. The sad man in the expensive suit who'd looked at her community center like it was something sacred. Hey, did your car survive? Mostly. Needed a new alternator and some ego repair. His voice was warmer than she remembered. Less corporate. I'm calling about the summer program. If the offer still stands to learn more. It does. Simone pulled up the budget file on her computer, the one she'd been staring at for 3 days trying to make the numbers work. Fair warning though, it's not exciting donor material. It's pretty straightforward stuff. I'd like to hear it anyway. Would you have time for coffee? I could come to you, somewhere in your neighborhood. Simone hesitated. In her experience, wealthy people who wanted to hear about programs usually wanted her to come to them. Downtown offices. Fancy restaurants. Places where she had to code switch and perform gratitude. You sure? She asked. I'm not downtown. I know where you are. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from the center, right? I saw it when I was waiting for the tow truck. He'd noticed the coffee shop. Had looked at the neighborhood closely enough to see past his own emergency. Jasmine's place, Simone said. Best coffee in Charleston, don't let anyone tell you different. Friday morning? 10 o'clock? I'll be there. When Friday came, Simone arrived at Jasmine's place at 9:50, which gave her exactly 10 minutes to wonder why she'd changed her shirt 3 times that morning. This was a donor meeting. Professional. Straightforward. The fact that Jonathan had kind eyes and had been honest about his sadness meant nothing. Except she'd thought about him more than once. The way he'd listen when she talked about the center. The way he'd eaten that sandwich like it was the first real food he'd had in weeks. The way he'd said, "You reminded me what it feels like to care about something real." Jonathan walked in at exactly 10 o'clock, and Simone felt something flutter in her chest that had no business being there. He looked different. Still well-dressed, but softer somehow. Jeans instead of a suit. A simple button-down shirt. He'd shaved, but his hair was slightly messy, like he'd forgotten to fix it. He looked approachable. Human. Dangerous, a voice in her head whispered. Hey, Jonathan said, sliding into the seat across from her. Thanks for meeting me. Thanks for coming to my neighborhood. Simone gestured to the menu board. What's your coffee order? My treat, since you're interested in supporting the center. You don't have to do that. I know. I want to. Something shifted in his expression. Like that small gesture meant more than it should. Black coffee, he said. And whatever you recommend for breakfast. I trust your taste. Simone ordered at the counter, came back with 2 coffees and 2 of Jasmine's famous peach scones. When she set everything down, Jonathan was looking at a folder she'd brought, the one with all the summer program details. So, Simone said, settling into her chair. The summer program. Here's the honest version. She walked him through it. 8 weeks, June through July. 50 kids, ages 8 to 14. Breakfast and lunch provided daily. Academic enrichment in the mornings, recreational activities in the afternoons. 2 field trips, one to the beach and one to the aquarium, if the budget allowed. Total cost, $75,000. Current funding, $32,000. We'll make it work somehow, Simone said. Even if I have to cut my own salary and run it on half the staff. These kids need it too much. Jonathan was quiet for a moment, studying the budget breakdown she'd printed. You've already cut your salary, he said. It wasn't a question. Simone blinked. How did you know that? You allocated nothing for executive director compensation in the summer budget. Which means you're planning to work for free. He looked up at her. For 8 weeks. It's not about the money. I know. But you still deserve to be paid for your work. The way he said it, simple and certain, made Simone's throat feel tight. Most donors don't think about that part, she said quietly. I'm not most donors. Jonathan set the folder down. What if I funded the whole thing? The full $75,000, plus operational buffer. $25,000 extra for unexpected costs. $100,000 total. Simone stared at him. That's not a small check. I know. You don't have to decide right now. You can think about it, talk to your financial people, whatever process you need. I don't need a process. I want to do this. Jonathan's eyes were steady on hers. My mother spent her whole life volunteering at places like yours. After-school programs, community centers, anywhere kids needed support. She believed that's where change happened. Real change, one kid at a time. His voice caught slightly on the word mother. The car trouble guy, Simone said softly. You're not just some random businessman, are you? Jonathan smiled, and it was almost sad. I'm Jonathan Wood. I own a tech company. We do data analytics, security software, things that make a lot of money and matter very little in the grand scheme of things. The name clicked. Simone had heard of Wood Technologies. Everyone had. One of the biggest success stories in the Southeast. You're that Jonathan Wood. Yeah. And you sat in my tiny office eating a turkey sandwich and didn't say anything. You didn't ask. You just saw someone who needed kindness. He paused. Do you know how rare that is? People who see the person instead of the portfolio? Simone understood then. The sadness. The way he'd looked so lost in her parking lot. Lonely, she said. It's lonely being someone everyone wants something from. Yes. They sat with that for a moment. The coffee shop buzzed around them. Jasmine called out orders. Regulars chatted at nearby tables. If you fund the summer program, Simone said carefully, I don't want it to be because you're lonely. Or because you're looking for something to fill the space your mom left. I need it to be because you believe in what we're doing. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. I believe in what you're doing. I saw it in your face when you talked about those kids. I heard it in your voice when you said someone has to care. He held her gaze. And yes, I'm lonely. Yes, I'm trying to figure out how to honor my mother's memory in ways that matter. But those things don't make this less real. Simone felt her heart do something complicated. This man was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with money. He was honest. Vulnerable. Real. Okay, she said. $100,000 for the summer program. But I have conditions. Name them. You don't get to control how we spend it. You trust me to allocate funds where they're needed most. You don't get naming rights or special recognition. And you come see it. At least once. See what your money is actually doing. I can do that. Jonathan extended his hand across the table. Deal. Simone shook his hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm but not aggressive. She let go before she wanted to. I'll have my attorney draw up the donation agreement, Jonathan said. Should have it to you by next week. Just like that? Just like that. Simone shook her head, laughing slightly. You're either the best person I've ever met or you're wildly impulsive. Maybe both. Jonathan took a sip of his coffee, and something in his expression shifted. Less guarded. Can I ask you something? Sure. That day in your office. You said your dad almost died. Medical crisis. But you didn't say what kind, and I didn't want to pry. He hesitated. I'm prying now. You can tell me it's none of my business. Simone considered deflecting. She usually did when people asked. But Jonathan had just committed $100,000 to kids he'd never met because he believed in work he'd barely seen. He'd earned honesty. Stroke, she said. 3 years ago, right before his 65th birthday. Massive, came out of nowhere. We almost lost him. She traced the rim of her coffee cup. He recovered, mostly. Some weakness on his left side. Memory issues sometimes. But he's here. That must have been terrifying. It was. Still is sometimes. Simone met his eyes. That's actually why I finally opened the center. I'd been planning it for years, but fear kept stopping me. What if I failed? What if I couldn't raise the money? What if nobody came? She smiled slightly. Then Dad had his stroke and I realized fear is just time we waste. If I wanted to do something that mattered, I had to do it. Even if I was scared. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. My mother had pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed stage 4. 6 months from diagnosis to death. He looked down at his coffee. I kept thinking we'd have more time. That I'd find the right treatment, the right doctor. That money could fix it. But it couldn't. No. It just meant she died in a nicer hospital room. Simone reached across the table without thinking, covered his hand with hers. I'm sorry. Jonathan looked at their hands. Didn't pull away. She would have loved you, he said quietly. She would have loved what you're doing at that center. She would have shown up with sandwiches and art supplies and bossed everyone around in the best way. She sounds wonderful. She was. Jonathan turned his hand over, laced his fingers through Simone's. Thank you. For listening. For not telling me it gets better or she's in a better place or any of the things people say that don't help. It does get different though, Simone said, echoing what she'd told him before. The falling stops. You find your feet again. I'm starting to think you might be right. They sat there, hands intertwined across the coffee shop table, and Simone knew this had stopped being just a donor meeting. Maybe it had never been just a donor meeting. I should let you get back to work, Jonathan said finally, though he didn't let go of her hand. But can I see you again? Not about the center. Just to see you. Simone's heart kicked hard against her ribs. Like a date? Yes. Exactly like a date. Every reasonable part of her brain said this was complicated. He was a donor now. A major donor. Getting involved personally was messy at best, problematic at worst. But he was looking at her like she was water in a desert. Like she was the first real thing he'd touched in years. And she felt the same way. Okay, Simone said. Yes. A date. Jonathan smiled, and it transformed his entire face. For the first time, he looked genuinely happy. Saturday, he asked. I could pick you up at 7. Make it 7:30. And pick me up at the center. I'll probably be working late anyway. 7:30 at the center. Jonathan stood, still holding her hand, reluctant to let go. Thank you, Simone. For the coffee. For saying yes. For everything. Thank you for caring about the kids. For real reasons. He squeezed her hand once more, then let go. Simone watched him walk out of the coffee shop, watched him pause on the sidewalk to look back at her through the window. He waved. She waved back. When he was gone, Simone sat very still, processing what had just happened. $100,000 for the summer program. A date with a man who made her heart race. A connection that felt like standing on the edge of something both terrifying and necessary. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Already counting the hours until Saturday. This is Jonathan, by the way. Saved your number from the business card. Hope that's okay. Simone smiled at her phone like a teenager. More than okay, she typed back. See you Saturday. She gathered her things, headed back toward the center, and tried to ignore the voice in her head that whispered this was dangerous. Because for the first time in longer than she could remember, dangerous felt exactly right. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. Saturday arrived wrapped in Charleston humidity and Simone's growing certainty that she was making either the best or worst decision of her life. By 7:15 in the evening, she'd changed clothes twice and given herself 3 separate lectures about maintaining professional boundaries. None of it helped. When Jonathan's car pulled up to the community center at exactly 7:30, her stomach still flipped. He drove something different this time. Not the Mercedes, but a simple Honda sedan that looked like it had actual miles on it. Borrowed my assistant's car, Jonathan explained when he saw her looking. Thought the Mercedes might be a bit much. The thoughtfulness of it made Simone's chest tight. He took her to Magnolia Plantation, where the gardens were hosting an evening concert series. They walked through paths lined with azaleas and ancient oaks, listened to a string quartet play beneath the stars, and talked about everything except the community center. Simone learned that Jonathan had wanted to be a teacher before business took over. That he still played piano badly but enthusiastically. That his mother had taught him to cook, and he made a mean lasagna when he bothered to try. Jonathan learned that Simone had a younger brother in Atlanta who called her every Sunday. That she'd run track in college and still jogged most mornings. That she loved terrible reality television and wouldn't apologize for it. The drama is soothing, she insisted, laughing at his expression. When everyone else's life is a mess, mine feels manageable. That's fair, Jonathan said. They'd stopped walking, finding themselves on a bridge over a quiet pond. Though I have to say, your life seems pretty together to me. You've known me for 2 weeks. Long enough to see you run a community center on pure determination and not enough funding. Long enough to watch you care about 50 kids like they're your own. He turned to face her fully. Long enough to know I want to keep seeing you figure out who you are. Simone's breath caught. The evening air was soft around them, full of jasmine and possibility. Jonathan, she said quietly. I need to be careful here. I know. You just gave my organization $100,000. That creates a power dynamic that makes this complicated. I know that too. Jonathan moved slightly closer. If you want me to pull the donation, I will. No strings, no guilt. The kids need it regardless of what happens between us. I don't want you to pull it. Simone looked up at him, her heart hammering. I want to believe we can keep this separate. The donation and whatever this is between us. We can. Can we really though? The question came out more vulnerable than she intended. Because in my experience, money always changes things. And you have a lot of it. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. Behind them, the string quartet shifted into something slower, achingly beautiful. My mother told me something once, he said finally. She said the hardest part about having money isn't keeping it or spending it. It's knowing who sees you and who sees the bank account. He met Simone's eyes. You saw me having car trouble in your parking lot and offered me a sandwich. Not a donation. Not an opportunity. Just kindness. That's why I'm here. I'm still scared, Simone admitted. Me too. Jonathan reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. I'm terrified actually. I haven't felt anything real since my mother died, and now I'm standing here feeling everything, and it's overwhelming. His honesty cracked something open in Simone's chest. Okay, she said. Let's be terrified together. But slowly. With boundaries. And the second this gets messy with the center, we stop. Deal. Jonathan pulled her closer, and Simone let him. Let herself rest against his chest, feel his heartbeat under her palm. Let herself want something just for her, separate from the center and the kids and all the ways she usually distributed herself. He kissed her there on the bridge, soft and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. When they pulled apart, Simone was shaking. That was, she started. Yeah, Jonathan finished. They stayed at the gardens until closing, then sat in his borrowed car in the community center parking lot talking until midnight. When Simone finally went home, she felt like she was glowing. The next 6 weeks unfolded like a dream she was afraid to wake from. Jonathan came to the center twice a week, not as a donor but as a volunteer. He helped with homework. Played basketball with the teenagers. Listened to the kids talk about their lives with the same serious attention he'd given Simone that first day. They went on actual dates. Dinner at small restaurants. Morning walks along the Battery. One perfect Sunday afternoon sailing in the harbor, where Jonathan admitted he had no idea what he was doing and Simone had to teach him. By mid-May, Simone had admitted to herself that she was falling in love with him. By late May, she'd admitted it to her mother. Baby, I'm happy for you, her mother said over Sunday dinner. But I'm also worried. What do you really know about this man? I know he's kind. I know he shows up. I know he sees me. And I know he has enough money to make problems disappear, her mother said gently. Which also means he has enough money to create problems you can't see coming. Simone wanted to argue. But her mother's caution planted a seed of doubt she couldn't quite shake. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in early June. Simone was in her office when she got an email from the Charleston Business Journal. They wanted to do a feature on the community center's innovative summer program and its major donor, Jonathan Wood. She read the email 3 times, feeling something cold settle in her stomach. She'd specifically asked for no special recognition. No publicity. Just quiet support. When Jonathan came by that evening, Simone was waiting. Did you talk to the Charleston Business Journal? She asked without preamble. Jonathan's expression shifted. Guarded. They called me last week. Wanted to do a piece on local philanthropy. And you said yes. I said I'd consider it. He stepped into her office, closed the door. Simone, I know you wanted to keep it quiet, but this kind of publicity could help you. Other donors see it, they want to be part of something successful. That's not your decision to make. Simone kept her voice level, professional. I asked for no recognition. That was one of my conditions. I haven't agreed to the interview yet. I wanted to talk to you first. You should have talked to me when they first called. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair. You're right. I should have. I'm sorry. The apology was immediate and seemed genuine. But something about the whole thing sat wrong with Simone. Why do you want to do the interview? She asked. Really? Because I'm proud of this place. Of you. Of what we're building here. We're not building anything. I built this. You donated to it. The words came out harsher than she intended, but she couldn't take them back. Didn't want to. Jonathan's face went carefully blank. That's not how I see it. How do you see it? I see a partnership. I see us working together to make something bigger than either of us could do alone. Partnership implies equal investment, Simone said quietly. You wrote a check. That's not the same as what I've put into this place. I know that. Do you? Simone stood up, needing distance. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're starting to see this center as something you own. As your project. Your redemption story. That's not fair. Isn't it? Simone turned to face him. Be honest, Jonathan. How much of your interest in this place is about the kids, and how much is about feeling less empty? The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. Jonathan's expression crumbled. Both, he said quietly. It's both. And I'm sorry if that's not pure enough for you, but it's the truth. Yes, I'm trying to find meaning after my mother died. Yes, being here makes me feel less hollow. But that doesn't mean I don't genuinely care about these kids. About you. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. I can't be your therapy, Jonathan. And this center can't be your grief project. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because right now it feels like you're using your money to buy your way into a life that makes you feel better. And I'm part of that package. Jonathan looked like she'd slapped him. You think that's what you are to me? Part of a package? I don't know what I am to you. That's the problem. They stared at each other across her small office. Outside, kids laughed. Someone bounced a basketball. Life continued, oblivious to the thing breaking between them. I'm in love with you, Jonathan said suddenly. That's what you are to me. You're the first person in 2 years who made me want to be alive again. Who made me feel like there was a point to getting up in the morning. So no, you're not part of a package. You're everything. Simone's heart cracked open. She'd wanted to hear those words. Dreamed about them. But hearing them now, in the middle of this fight, made everything more complicated. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. And that terrifies me. Because what happens when you get what you need from this? When you've processed your grief and you don't need the center anymore? Don't need me anymore. That's not going to happen. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Jonathan moved toward her. Simone, I understand you're scared. I understand you've worked too hard to let someone come in and take over. But I'm not trying to take anything. I'm trying to give. To be part of something that matters. By doing interviews I specifically asked you not to do. Jonathan stopped. I won't do the interview. You're right. I should have checked with you first. I'm sorry. The apology should have been enough. But Simone couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. I need some space, she said quietly. To think. To figure out if we can actually keep this separate like we said we would. Simone, please. I'm not saying it's over. I'm saying I need space. Jonathan stood there, looking lost in a way that reminded her of that first day in the parking lot. But this time, Simone couldn't fix it with a sandwich and kindness. Okay, he said finally. How much space? I don't know. A week maybe. I just need to think clearly, and I can't do that when you're here. He nodded slowly. Moved toward the door. Stopped with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, Jonathan said without turning around, you're not a grief project. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. And I'm sorry I made you doubt that. Then he was gone. Simone sank into her chair, dropped her head into her hands, and let herself cry. Through the window, she could hear the kids playing. The summer program started in 2 weeks. Funded by a man she was falling in love with and pushing away in the same breath. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. I love you. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. Simone stared at the words until they blurred. She'd asked for a grand gesture from the universe. For help when she needed it most. For someone who saw her and cared about the work she was doing. She'd gotten exactly that. And now she had no idea if she could trust it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The week Simone asked for stretched into 2. June arrived hot and heavy, bringing the start of the summer program and 50 kids who needed her full attention. Simone threw herself into the work, arriving at the center before dawn and leaving long after the kids went home. It was easier than thinking about Jonathan. Easier than admitting how much she missed him. The program was everything she'd hoped for. Kids showed up every morning excited, bellies full from breakfast, eager for whatever the day held. They did math games and reading circles. They painted murals and played capture the flag. They were safe and cared for and happy. All of it funded by a man Simone was refusing to see. Jonathan had respected her request for space. No calls. No visits to the center. Just one text every few days. Thinking of you. Hope the program is going well. I'm still here when you're ready. Each message made her chest ache. You look miserable, her mother said on the second Sunday of June. They were sitting on her parents' back porch, her father napping inside after church. And before you tell me you're fine, I raised you. I know what fine looks like, and this isn't it. Simone picked at her plate of food. I don't know what I'm doing, Ma. With Jonathan. With everything. The center's thriving because of his money. The kids are having the summer they deserve. Everything I wanted is happening. She set down her fork. So why do I feel like I'm losing something? Her mother was quiet for a moment, watching a cardinal hop along the porch railing. Baby, you've been taking care of everyone else since you were old enough to understand need, she said finally. You saw me working myself to the bone, saw your daddy do the same, saw kids in this neighborhood struggling. And you decided early that your job was to fix it. To be strong enough that nobody had to take care of you. Someone had to. And that someone burned herself out trying. Her mother turned to look at her. When's the last time you let someone help you? Not the center. You. When's the last time you let someone see you struggling and didn't push them away? Simone's eyes burned. I don't know. That man loves you. Even I can see that, and I've never met him. He made a mistake with that interview business, sure. But he apologized. He backed off when you asked. He's still there, waiting, not pushing. Her mother reached over, took Simone's hand. So what are you really afraid of? That he'll leave. The words came out broken. That I'll let myself need him, let myself love him completely, and then he'll realize this was just about filling a hole his mother left. That I'm not enough to keep him once the novelty wears off. And what if he doesn't leave? Simone looked at her mother. What? What if you let yourself love him, let yourself be loved, and he stays? What if he's exactly who he seems to be, a good man who's been lonely and found someone who makes him whole? Her mother squeezed her hand. What if you're enough exactly as you are, and you're the one making this complicated? The truth of it hit Simone like a wave. She'd been so focused on protecting herself, on maintaining control, that she'd missed the obvious. Jonathan had never tried to take over. He'd volunteered, not dictated. He'd apologized when he overstepped. He'd given her space when she asked. He'd done everything right. And she'd pushed him away anyway. I really messed this up, didn't I? Simone whispered. Nothing that can't be fixed if you're brave enough to try. Her mother smiled. You've never been short on brave, baby. Don't start now. That night, Simone lay in bed staring at her phone. It was nearly 11. Too late to call. She called anyway. Jonathan answered on the second ring. Simone? His voice was rough, like he'd been asleep. Or crying. Are you okay? No, she said honestly. I'm really not. She heard rustling, like he was sitting up. What's wrong? What do you need? I need to apologize. For pushing you away. For making you feel like your grief wasn't valid or your intentions weren't pure. For being so scared of needing you that I convinced myself you were the problem. Jonathan was silent for a long moment. You don't have to apologize for being scared. Yes, I do. Because you've been nothing but honest with me, and I repaid that by questioning everything. Simone's voice cracked. I miss you, Jonathan. I miss you so much it hurts. I miss you too. His voice was thick with emotion. Every day. Every moment. I drive past the center and have to stop myself from pulling in just to see if you're there. Why didn't you? Because you asked for space. And respecting what you need matters more than what I want. Simone closed her eyes, tears sliding down her temples. I don't want space anymore. I want you. I want to figure this out together, even though it's scary and complicated and I have no idea how to balance loving you with running the center. We'll figure it out. Jonathan's voice was steady now. Certain. Simone, I meant what I said. You're not a grief project. You're not a phase. You're the person I want to build a life with, if you'll let me. Even though I'm terrible at accepting help? Even though. We'll work on it together. Even though I'm scared? Especially because you're scared. Because you're being brave enough to love me anyway. Simone laughed, the sound watery but real. When did you get so wise? About 2 weeks ago when the woman I love told me she needed space and I had to sit with why that terrified me so much. She heard him take a breath. Turns out, losing you scared me more than anything I've felt since my mother died. And that's when I knew this was real. It is real, Simone said softly. For me too. I love you, Jonathan. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it when it wasn't in the middle of a fight. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. Simone smiled through her tears. I love you, I love you, I love you. Jonathan made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Can I see you? Tomorrow? Tonight? Whenever you're ready? Simone looked at her clock. 11:15 on a Sunday night. Come over, she said. Right now. I don't want to wait. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He made it in 15. Simone opened her apartment door to find Jonathan standing there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair messy, eyes red-rimmed but blazing with something that made her heart stutter. Hi, she said. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Then Jonathan stepped forward and Simone met him halfway, and they were kissing like they were trying to make up for 2 weeks of missing each other in a single moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jonathan rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I need you to know that's not about my mother or grief or trying to fill anything. It's about you. Who you are. How you see the world. The way you care about those kids like their dreams are your own. I know, Simone whispered. I'm sorry I made you doubt that I knew. And I'm sorry I didn't check with you about the interview. I got excited and forgot that this is your work, your vision. I'm just supporting it. You're more than just support. Simone pulled back to look at him properly. You were right about partnership. I was too scared to admit it, but you're part of this now. Part of what we're building. And I want that. I want you involved, as long as we keep talking. Keep checking with each other. I can do that. Jonathan cupped her face in his hands. I want to do that. For the center. For us. For whatever we're building together. They moved to Simone's couch, curled up together like they were afraid to let go. Outside, Charleston hummed with late-night traffic and summer insects. Inside, they talked. About boundaries and expectations. About how to keep the center separate from their relationship. About Jonathan's tendency to fix things with money and Simone's tendency to refuse help even when she needed it. I'm working on it, Simone admitted. The refusing help thing. My therapist says it's a control issue. You have a therapist? Started seeing her 3 months ago. Right before I met you actually. Simone smiled. She's going to have a lot to say about all this at our next session. Jonathan laughed, the sound lighter than she'd heard from him in weeks. Mine too. He keeps telling me that letting myself be happy isn't betraying my mother's memory. Is that what you were afraid of? Yeah. Jonathan's hand found hers, laced their fingers together. She spent her whole life taking care of people. Working herself to exhaustion for causes she believed in. And then she died, and I had all this money and no idea how to honor her. Being miserable felt like the only appropriate response. And now? Now I think maybe the best way to honor her is to live. To love. To find meaning in work that matters. He kissed Simone's knuckles. To build something with someone who makes me believe the world can be better. Simone's throat went tight. She'd be proud of you. Of what you're doing for those kids. You think so? I know so. They fell asleep on Simone's couch, wrapped around each other, still fully clothed. When Simone woke at dawn to her alarm, Jonathan was watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. What? She asked, voice rough with sleep. Just thinking about how lucky I am. That my car broke down in your parking lot. That you offered me a sandwich. That you saw me. I'm the lucky one. Simone kissed him softly. You showed up exactly when I needed you. We showed up for each other. It was true, Simone realized. This wasn't a rescue. It was a meeting. Two people who'd been lost in different ways finding each other and choosing to be brave together. I have to get to the center, she said reluctantly. Summer program starts at 8. Can I come with you? Help out? The kids have been asking about you. Where Mr. Jonathan went. His face lit up. They have? Every day. Especially Marcus. He keeps asking when you're coming back to play basketball. Then I should probably go home, change, and meet you there. Jonathan stood, pulled Simone up with him. But tonight, let me take you to dinner. A real date. To celebrate not being idiots anymore. Simone laughed. We're probably still going to be idiots sometimes. Yeah, but we'll be idiots together. Deal. She walked him to the door, kissed him goodbye, watched him drive away with a feeling in her chest that she finally recognized as hope. Not the desperate hope of someone trying to save the world alone. The steady hope of someone who'd found a partner for the work. Simone got ready for work, drove to the center, and found 50 kids waiting for another day of the summer they deserved. A summer funded by love. Built on trust. Made possible by two people brave enough to be vulnerable. She pulled out her phone, sent Jonathan a text. Thank you. For everything. For staying. For loving me. For being exactly who you are. His response came immediately. Thank you for letting me. See you soon. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. July in Charleston arrived with thunderstorms and humidity thick enough to swim through, but nothing could dampen the energy at the East Side Community Center. The summer program was in its final week, and it had exceeded every expectation Simone had dared to hold. 50 kids had shown up every single day. Test scores had improved. Friendships had formed. Parents reported fewer behavioral issues, more confidence, kids who couldn't wait to come back each morning. And through it all, Jonathan had been there. Not as a donor. Not as someone trying to fix things with his checkbook. But as a volunteer who showed up, listened, and cared about each kid like they mattered. Because to him, they did. It was Friday afternoon, the second to last day of the program, when Jonathan pulled Simone aside during afternoon activities. Can you take a break? He asked. Just for 20 minutes. There's something I want to show you. Simone glanced at the kids, all occupied with various activities. Her assistant director gave her a knowing smile and a shooing motion. Go, she said. We've got this. Jonathan led her outside to the playground behind the center, where a large tarp covered something Simone hadn't noticed before. What is this? She asked. A gift. Not from me. From the kids. Jonathan pulled the tarp away. Underneath was a mural. Professionally done, vibrant and stunning. It showed the community center at the heart of a neighborhood in bloom. Kids of all ages played, learned, dreamed. And in the corner, painted with careful detail, was Simone. Her likeness captured in a moment of joy, surrounded by the children she'd dedicated her life to serving. At the bottom, in colorful letters, it read, "Thank you, Miss Simone. You believed in us first." Simone's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled before she could stop them. The kids designed it, Jonathan said softly. Worked with a local artist all last week during art time. They wanted you to know what you mean to them. What this place means. Jonathan, Simone whispered. She couldn't find more words. I know you said no recognition. No publicity. But this isn't for donors or newspapers. This is for you. From kids who see you exactly as you are and love you for it. Simone turned into Jonathan's chest and sobbed. Happy tears. Overwhelmed tears. Tears from a heart too full to contain what she felt. I love it, she managed. I love them. I love this. I love you. Jonathan held her while she cried, one hand smoothing her hair, whispering that he loved her too. When Simone finally pulled back, mascara smeared and eyes puffy, she laughed through the tears. I'm a mess. You're beautiful. Jonathan wiped her cheeks with his thumbs. And I need to ask you something. Okay. He took both her hands, and Simone's heart started to race. These past 4 months with you have been the most alive I've felt in years, Jonathan said. You've shown me what it means to care about something bigger than myself. To be part of a community. To love without holding back. He paused, his voice catching. You've shown me how to honor my mother's memory by living the kind of life she'd be proud of. Jonathan, Simone breathed. I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. I know we're still figuring this out, still learning how to balance everything. But I need you to know that's where this is going for me. You're it, Simone. You're who I want to build a life with. Simone's heart felt like it might burst. You're it for me too. Yeah? Yeah. She pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like salt and joy. Absolutely yeah. They stood there in front of the mural, holding each other as the summer sun slanted through the trees, and Simone felt something settle deep in her bones. Peace. Certainty. Home. Come on, she said finally. Let's go back inside. I want to thank those kids properly. The last day of the summer program fell on a Saturday in late July. Simone had planned a celebration. Families were invited. There would be food, performances from the kids, certificates of completion. A proper ending to 8 weeks that had changed lives. What she didn't know was that Jonathan had been planning something too. The event started at noon. Parents filled the main room, proud and smiling. Kids performed skits they'd written, displayed art projects, demonstrated skills they'd learned. The energy was electric, joyful, exactly what Simone had dreamed of. During a break between activities, Jonathan took the microphone. Excuse me, everyone. I'd like to say a few words if that's okay. Simone looked at him, surprised. He hadn't mentioned wanting to speak. Jonathan found her in the crowd, his eyes warm. 4 months ago, I had car trouble in this parking lot. I was lost in a lot of ways, not just geographically. And a woman I'd never met offered me a sandwich and some kindness when I needed it most. The room had gone quiet, everyone listening. That woman is Simone Price, and she changed my life that day. Not because she knew who I was or what I could offer, but because she saw someone struggling and responded with compassion. That's who she is. That's what this place represents. Simone felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry a lot these days, but they were good tears. Happy tears. This summer program happened because Simone refused to accept that kids in this neighborhood deserved anything less than the best. She fought for funding, planned every detail, poured her heart into making sure 50 children had a safe, nurturing place to spend their summer. Jonathan's voice grew thick with emotion. I had the privilege of helping financially. But make no mistake, this is Simone's vision. Her heart. Her work. Applause filled the room. Parents stood. Kids cheered. Simone wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. But here's what I really want to say, Jonathan continued. Simone teaches these kids that they matter. That their dreams are valid. That someone believes in them. And watching her do that, day after day, reminded me of something my mother used to say. He paused, collecting himself. She said that the measure of a life well lived isn't what you accumulate. It's what you give. Who you love. What you build that lasts beyond yourself. Jonathan looked directly at Simone. Simone Price lives that truth every single day. And she's inspired me to try to do the same. The applause was deafening now. Simone couldn't see through her tears, but she felt them. Happy, overwhelming, grateful tears. Jonathan handed the microphone back to Simone's assistant director and made his way through the crowd to her side. That was, Simone started. True, Jonathan finished. Every word. The celebration continued around them. Kids performed their final skit. Certificates were distributed. Parents thanked Simone with hugs and tears and promises to be back when the after-school program resumed in the fall. As the sun set and families headed home, Simone and Jonathan stayed behind to clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, putting away chairs, sweeping floors, turning off lights. I have something for you, Jonathan said when they finished. In my car. Can you come outside for a minute? They walked to the parking lot, to the same spot where they'd met 4 months earlier. Jonathan's car was parked almost exactly where his Mercedes had died that March afternoon. Poetic, Simone said, smiling. I thought so too. Jonathan pulled an envelope from his glove compartment. This is for you. For the center, technically. But really for you. Simone opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, formal and legal looking. She read it once. Then again. Then looked at Jonathan with her mouth open. This is a trust, she said slowly. An endowment. For the community center. $5 million, Jonathan confirmed. Structured so it provides annual funding in perpetuity. Enough to cover operating costs, staff salaries, programming. Enough that you never have to worry about keeping the doors open. Jonathan, this is too much. It's not nearly enough for what you do. But it's a start. He took her hands. And before you argue, there are conditions. You can't refuse your own salary anymore. You have to pay yourself fairly. And you have to let me help when you need it, no more trying to do everything alone. Simone laughed through fresh tears. Those are your conditions? Those are my conditions. Non négociable. She looked at the letter again. $5 million. Security for the center. For the kids. For the work she dedicated her life to. Why, she whispered. Because my mother spent her whole life giving to places like this, and I have more money than I could ever spend. Because these kids deserve stability. Because you deserve to build your vision without constantly worrying about funding. Jonathan lifted her chin so she met his eyes. And because I love you. Because your dream is my dream now. Because I want to spend the rest of my life supporting what you build. The rest of your life, Simone repeated softly. If you'll have me. She kissed him then, there in the parking lot where they'd met, under the same summer stars that had witnessed their beginning. I'll have you, she said against his lips. For as long as you want to stay. Forever then. Jonathan smiled. I'm thinking forever. 6 months later, on a January afternoon, Jonathan and Simone stood in front of their families and friends in a small ceremony at the community center. Simone wore a simple white dress. Jonathan wore a suit and the biggest smile anyone had ever seen on him. The kids from the summer program served as unofficial wedding party, dressed in their finest, beaming with pride. Simone's father, stronger now, walked her down an aisle formed by folding chairs. Her mother cried happy tears in the front row. Jonathan's sister, who'd flown in from Seattle, kept snapping photos. They wrote their own vows. You found me when I was lost, Jonathan said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. You reminded me what it means to care. To give. To love without fear. You showed me that honoring my mother's memory means living fully, loving deeply, and building something that matters. I promise to support your dreams. To show up. To be your partner in every sense of the word. I love you, Simone. Thank you for seeing me. Simone took a shaky breath, overwhelmed with joy. You showed up in my parking lot having car trouble, and I thought I was just offering a sandwich, she said. I had no idea I was meeting my future. My partner. My home. She squeezed his hands. You've taught me that accepting help isn't weakness. That love doesn't diminish me, it multiplies what I can do. That building something meaningful is better when you don't do it alone. I promise to let you in. To trust you. To build this life with you. I love you, Jonathan. Thank you for staying. When they kissed as husband and wife, the kids cheered so loudly the walls shook. The reception was held right there in the center, catered by Jasmine's place. Simple food, lots of laughter, dancing that lasted until the noise complaints started. Late in the evening, Simone and Jonathan stepped outside for air. The mural the kids had painted still decorated the playground wall, a little faded now but no less beautiful. Happy? Jonathan asked, pulling her close. Ridiculously, Simone said. You? More than I knew how to hope for. They stood there together, looking at the center that had brought them together, thinking about the life they were building. A life of purpose and partnership. Of kids who needed them and love that sustained them. Of showing up for each other and the community they both cherished. Simone thought about that March afternoon when a stranger had car trouble in her parking lot. How she'd offered help without knowing it would change everything. How sometimes the smallest gestures of kindness open doors to the biggest love. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For having car trouble. For being brave enough to accept help. For loving me. Jonathan kissed her temple. Thank you for offering a sandwich to a stranger. For seeing past the sadness. For believing we could build something beautiful together. We did build something beautiful. We really did. Inside, music started again. Someone called for the bride and groom. Life waited, full of promise and possibility. Simone took her husband's hand, and together they walked back inside. Back to the center of everything that mattered. Back to the love they'd built one kind gesture at a time. Back home. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next.